Welcome back to Sharp Sports Media. And last night, the Colorado Avalanche, they got it done. They win the Stanley Cup in a 6-game series, beating the Lightning 4-2. And with the Stanley Cup playoffs over, the best playoffs in sports, I kind of just wanted to give a recap and my opinions on the last couple weeks or months of what amazing hockey we got. And overall, I continue to say the Stanley Cup is the best playoffs in all of sports. I mean, the intensity, the skill, the unknowingness of who can win, who's going to win, because any team can win. Truly, any team that gets into the postseason has a shot, and it's not usual to see usually the best two teams you think going into the season end up in the Stanley Cup final, and to see the best team or the team that was the favorite to win the Stanley Cup. This is only the 5th time, I think, since odds were started to come out publicly or something like that, that the favorited team going into the year won the cup, being the Avs. And I do think it was definitely good to see the best two teams on the first year of having it on ESPN and ABC and TNT. I think that drew a lot of viewers, as it was the three-peat versus the team that was supposed to be there and the team that everybody thinks is going to win versus the team trying to make history, be the first team to three-peat since the Islanders in the early 80s. And the hockey, especially all throughout, but we'll talk about the Stanley Cup Final first, was fantastic. I mean, the speed of the Colorado Avalanche players, just the pure talent, even on both sides. McKinnon, Makar, Kucherov. You didn't have Point, which sucked for not the entire series, but you still had Hedman, Vasilevsky. You had big-time players that were making big-time plays, and it was exciting to watch. I mean, watching the little adjustments. For example, the first 2 games of this series, Colorado was pinning. One of the biggest reasons that they were winning these games, where they were pinning Tampa in their their defensive zone and not letting them escape. Their forecheck was fast, it was fierce, and they were laying the body all over the place, and Tampa could not get out of their own end. So what did Tampa do to adjust in Game 3? Well, they said, if we can't pass the puck out as we want to, well, we're just going to flip the puck out. And they took out their pitching wedges, just hit a nice little chip into the neutral zone, and went, let's go race for it. And they ended up winning a lot of those races, and they win Game 3 by a score of 6-2. And watching those adjustments was very cool to see in the Stanley Cup Final, on how, all right, Colorado is beating us on the forecheck. They are beating us with our speed. How are we going to counter that? And it wasn't just great action in the first or the last series. I mean, how many games? We had multiple Game 7s in the first round. You had the Dallas Flames series, which was crazy with the Dallas goaltender. His name is not. I'm having a brain fart with that, but he was standing on his head, especially in games 5, 6, and 7, helping force that series to 7 games. Johnny Gaudreau with the winner to send them to the next round. I mean, Johnny Hockey, probably the biggest goal in his Flames career, to send that and the Flames to the next round. I mean, you had the Oilers and the Kings. Who would have thought the Kings would have took the Oilers 7 games? I mean, they're just a tough, gritty, veteran team who knows how to get under your skin and how to play a style of hockey that is successful. And to go up against the talent like a Connor McDavid, who may have had one of the best playoffs we've seen in the last 40 years. I mean, ridiculous numbers that he put up. He led the entire playoffs in points, though, and he didn't get to the Cup final. In 24 games, he had 16 goals, in 16 games at 24 years of age. 10 goals, 23 assists for 33 points. More than 2 points per game. Ridiculous. Leon Draisaitl with 2 points per game. He had in 16 games 7 goals and 25 assists. So to see a nitty-gritty old veteran team like the LA Kings really push this Edmonton Oilers team was so great to see. Probably the best series in the first round of the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. In my opinion, whoever won that series was gonna beat Florida or Washington. Sorry about that. But what a back and forth series. It was Game 6 and Game 7. The Tampa Bay Lightning win back-to-back games, down 3-2 to win that. And in the entire including the regular season and the postseason, between those two teams, no team had won back-to-back games all year. And the first team to do it was the Lightning in Game 6 and Game 7 to move on, which is crazy. That shows how tight and how close they were. I mean, this wasn't like your usual Toronto Maple Leafs meltdown. Matthews, Tavares, and Marner all played stupendous hockey. I mean, they really controlled a lot of the games versus Tampa, usually outshot them. So, Tampa just has that nitty-gritty. They block the shots. They play within their system, and they have the big-time stars like a Point, like a Kucherov, like a Stamkos, like a Hedman, who can get the job done with not that many chances. And then you go to the other final Game 7, the last two Game 7s. You had the Boston-Carolina series, which every home team won, which was crazy. You saw Carolina come out, win 2 strong. You're like, oh, this is going to be a blowout. Then Boston comes back, and they win the next 2. And you're like, oh, my God, what happened to Carolina? Here comes the Boston veterans in Marchand and Pastrnak and Bergeron, and here they come, and they're going to go back, and it looks like they got it back under control, but then it just kept flip-flopping, and Carolina, with 4 home games instead of 3, being the number 1 seed, ends up taking it, and then the final one, the New York Rangers, down 3-1 to Sid the Kid of Evgeny Malkin. You're thinking, it's over. But Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin, I mean, Igor had an absolutely fantastic postseason. I think he really solidified himself with the Vezina, with this postseason play. It's probably a top 3 goaltender in the league right now. You can make the case for 2. I think Vasi stays at 1, but you have to have Igor in that conversation. That's how good he was. And just even the play throughout the Battle of Alberta, while disappointing it only went 5 games, each game was so much fun to watch, so close, so physical. I only wish we got more of that. The Hurricanes and the Rangers going 7. Fine, you know what it took to defeat Carolina? They finally lose a home game. It took them to lose a home game to lose this series, which was crazy. It's the difference between their level of play at home versus away was nuts. Overall, it was just a great Stanley Cup playoffs. I always enjoy. I think it's the best playoff in sports. Watching, and you got to watch some historic performances, like I talked about, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, but this guy Cale Makar, I can't wrap my head around how good he is for his age. He was 3rd for the playoffs in points, 23 years of age. He had 20 games played, 8 goals, 21 assists for 29 points. Dude is only 23 years old, and he's the first player ever to win the Hobey Baker, the Calder, the Norris, the Conn Smythe, and the Stanley Cup. All 5 of the major trophies in college and professionals. It's ridiculous. And he's the first, he's the 3rd player all time to win, I think, the Vezina and the Conn, or something like that. He's been setting records. The way he shifts, the way he uses his edges, the way he sees the ice, the way he can just break out of his zone. I mean, he looks trapped. He shifts his body and boom, he's out. The way he can adjust angles on the point, even his defensive angles are fantastic. He could go down as the best defenseman since Bobby Orr. He has been that good, and how high his ceiling could be, and to see that come through in the regular season and in the postseason now, see Cale Makar really become a household name. Because before, 3 years ago, or his rookie year, he was very good, but it was who's better, Makar or Quinn Hughes, and it were maybe household names. And Makar then took another step, didn't win the Vezina last year, Norris last year. Then he takes another step, and now he wins the Norris, he wins the Conn Smythe, he wins his cup. And now he's a household name, and people know, hey, this guy is must-see TV, absolute must-see TV. So I definitely enjoyed watching this and watching that Colorado Avalanche team. And there's always on every Stanley Cup team, you're gonna have the guys who are not the top 6 guys who are coming in clutch, who guys maybe you acquired at the deadline, or just sleeper guys, or maybe just improved or true postseason players. I mean, Tampa, you had guys like Coleman, Goudreau, Killorn, who didn't show up this year, unfortunately. But for them, Nick Paul was huge for them this year. So for Colorado to see guys like Val Nichushkin, in 20 games get 9 goals and 6 assists for 15 points. I mean, and then he has just he's been great for them. Not expected to be as from where he was being for Colorado for a couple years now. Really took a big step this year, having 52 points in the regular season, and really took another step for them in the postseason. Nazem Kadri, who's been very good in the postseason for Toronto, for Colorado, but always gets suspended in the big games. Well, you can't say that now. Had a fantastic series by Nazem Kadri. I mean, he was fantastic in this series, in the playoffs. He had 7 goals, 8 assists for 15 points in 16 games, almost a point per game. And I think the biggest surprise, the guy that came in out of nowhere from him, was Arturi Lehkonen, getting him at the deadline from Montreal, who hasn't really performed that well in the postseason before. He gets 14 points in 20 games, 8 goals, scores the game-winning goal in Game 6 to win Colorado the Stanley Cup. I mean, coming from Montreal, he hasn't been able to put it together in the postseason. Last year, in 17 postseason games, had 4 points, 3 goals, 1 assist. The year before that, with the Canadians, 10 games, he has 4 points. So he hasn't been able to put it together in the postseason. It really hasn't been a regular season. I mean, he's a solid third, fourth line kind of guy. 29 points, last year 13 points in 47 games. This year had total points of 38 points. It's not a world beater kind of points. He scored only 19 goals. Didn't score 40 goals. But coming through in those clutch moments, in it being a valuable piece in this team, those are the guys that you need to try to find, or that really put you over the edge. And Colorado had those guys, and I think that ultimately, with performances from McKinnon and Makar and Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen was challenged by his coach to say, by Jared Bednar, you got to step up, and he did step up in the conference finals, and then in the Stanley Cup finals, ended with 25 points in 20 games, 20 assists for him in 20 games. So he averaged an assist per game, which is crazy. Overall, fantastic Stanley Cup playoffs. We're so exciting to watch. Congrats to the Colorado fans. If you want to give me your takes on Stanley Cup, you could tweet them at me at @jsharf_1216. But I am so hyped for the off season, and let's go Devils after that. But thank you guys so much for watching. See you. on the other side.